way outside of the Webster definition, which is, it's good, but I want to look at it even further. And the Eros is a neurochemical bond. So it's the oxytocin, the vasopressin. I look at it neurologically speaking. It's that neurochemical bond towards the other person with a belief that that person is the source of these feelings. Now, for a woman, that has to happen hypergamously, where she thinks that he is the best that she can do and the best that she's ever had. How important respect is from the female side of it, particularly. Not to say it's not important for the guy to respect the woman he's with, but we'll say it's even more important for the female to have respect for the guy.
I think, first, there needs to be an understanding of what love and respect is. Right? So I did some research, right?
Definition.
Merriam-Webster definition. And it says love is a feeling of a strong or constant affection for a person, right? And respect is a feeling of admiration of someone or something that is good, valuable, or important. Okay? Now, those are very different, understandings. Yes. One is a strong feeling of affection for a person, and affection is not equal banging them. Let's just get that straight. A strong feeling of affection is beyond the sexual aspect, but a feeling of admiration, admiring someone that is good, valuable, or important, that is completely different than love. But I think they're on the same coin. Okay. And I have a degree in theology from Liberty University. And so I'm coming at this from a very a biblical pretext. Okay. And so in Ephesians 33, everybody goes to the book of Ephesians chapter 5, when it talks about dynamics of men and women, right? And husband and wife. And guys love this first part of Ephesians, where it says wives must submit to your husbands. And most guys will end right there. Be like, yep, God said it. That's it. Start submitting. The difference between submission and obedience obedience is doing what you're told to do. Submission is doing what is right without being told to do it.
Interesting.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
If you look at it that way, I don't have to tell you to obey the law. If you just obey the law, you're submitting to the law.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so there's a difference in understanding submission and in the context of what it's supposed to be written in. But when it says in Ephesians 5:33, so I say again, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and wife must respect her husband. God didn't say, or Paul didn't write that, not you, Paul, but Paul in the Bible.
Yeah.
He didn't write wives must love their husbands. And he didn't do that for a very specific reason, because love and respect are different. And because we are different, we, take love and respect differently.
I'll expand on that a bit. And I'm not a Bible scholar, although I've read the Bible actually cover to cover. It's back in the day, something I thought I would do once. And, but I'm definitely not a scholar on that, but that does line up with some of the things I was going to say, like in definitions here. I put love in quotations like this a lot because it tends to be a container word. It's a real word, but I don't like to use it because people have different ideas or definitions of what that is. And most people don't actually know what that is. I mean, they haven't really thought about what it really means. And I did a video a long time ago on different types of love and how the Greeks looked at it. Eros, which is the genuine burning desire love that she would have, that we would describe that she would have for her man, is different than other types of love. There's different words. I'm not
like Philadelphia love or whatever. I call it the Philadelphia love, but it's
right,
brotherly love.
Yeah, well, right. It's you have your familial love, like with family members, or brotherly. You have friendship. There's even a word to describe basically, to keep it censored for YouTube, F buddy. You know what I mean? That describes that as a type of love that's different than Eros, which is that burning desire. And Eros is talked about oftentimes in Greek literature as being dangerous, even could be potentially dangerous for someone. You have to be careful with it because it's that deep burning desire.
That type of love gets confused with lust and, like just lusting after something or lusting after someone. I love it so much. No, you just love the satisfaction of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it does. And there's what also gets lost is the difference between the male perspective and the female perspective, because men and women don't love the same. So I'm going to kind of go off on a monologue on Eros for a second here, because way outside of the Webster definition, which is, it's good, but I want to look at it even further. And the Eros is a neurochemical bond. So it's the oxytocin, the vasopressin. I look at it neurologically speaking. It's that neurochemical bond towards the other person with a belief that that person is the source of these feelings. Now, for a woman, that has to happen hypergamously, where she thinks that he is the best that she can do and the best that she's ever had. And so what that results in, and with that, the belief that she can keep him and have a future with him. And so all those things together result in high sexual desire as well as high emotional desire. You know what I mean? And so it's a strong desire to be with that person. When a guy thinks of a woman loving him in a relationship, that's the type of love he's thinking about. He's not thinking about it in the same sense she might love a child or love her family member or a friend, right? Which is totally different. Now, for her, which is different than guys too, the bond is pragmatic. In other words, so she feels this massive sexual desire on a deep genetic level towards him because of hypergamy and the genetic signals. And that's coupled too, though, with her imprinting experiences with him. In other words, the level of intensity of these sexual experiences and the experiences of being together. And it assumes, though, too, that she's retained that ability to neurochemically bond with this other person, which means that intense experiences with him and those intense desiring experiences follows a flood of bonding chemicals. Where if a girl is excessively promiscuous, let's say, in her younger years, what can happen is she doesn't get those bonding chemicals to the same strength or degree from those intense desiring experiences with them, that first kiss or that sexual experience or whatever. And women know this, whether they like to admit it or not. And they usually don't like to admit that this is true, but this is why their first kiss is so magical and they have a bunch of feelings towards a guy versus some guy she kisses at the end of a date. It's this, there's that she can kiss a guy at the end of the date because she just doesn't want to kind of be mean to the guy and never go out with him again. Or when she was 14 years old and she has that first kiss, oxytocin, a huge association of that. And so it assumes that she is, able to have that neurochemical bond. It's been called pair bonding, but that's not really an accurate term, I don't think, because you can have the neurochemical bond with more than one person at different times of our life too. But for a woman, it's not like where the fiction would be like we're penguins and then penguins mate for life. And then if the one dies, the other one wanders the earth sad. It's not really how we are as human beings. We're mate switchers. But, for her though, she for her to be happy and to maintain some sort of long-term love or long-term relationship, well, really just a feeling of love by that definition, she has to feel that this dude is her best, not just the best she can do, but the best she's experienced. And that's subjective, but it's just how she feels about him and how she feels about it. Doesn't matter if, the guy she dated in college had better athletic ability than the guy she's crazy over, who's a 40-year-old guy when she's 35 or something. That doesn't matter by itself. What matters is how she perceives it and experiences it. But because of that, though, if she doesn't respect him, See, respect indicates that she sees him as capable, that she sees him as worthy, worthwhile. If she doesn't respect him, then that violates her ability to see him as her hypergamous best. And so they can't go together. If she truly doesn't respect her guy in that moment, she's not loving him. Now, granted, feelings are fleeting. So she could feel it in, tomorrow. But today, right now, she's being disrespectful and has disrespect to her guy. She's sending the message to her brain, this guy cannot possibly be the best you can do. This guy cannot possibly be it because he's incompetent and he's an idiot, or he's, a jackass, or he's whatever disrespectful thoughts and contemptuous thoughts she's having. That's what gets in the way.
Can you explain the different ways a husband respects his wife versus the way a wife respects her husband? Okay, for me, it looks like this. Now, if my girl comes to me and says like, hey, I don't like this, or I feel disrespected by this. Okay, the way that I respect her would, to one, be understanding where she's feeling, how she's feeling it, but to explain to her, giving her the knowledge of something. That's respect. It doesn't necessarily mean change what I'm going to do. It doesn't mean stop living in my frame. It means explain to them why I'm doing what I'm doing, or why I see that this is the best route to go down rather than this other way. I think that's respect. If you just say, well, I'm going to do it because I'm going to do it and I'm the man, well, it's disrespectful. You're not giving them any understanding of why, right? I think giving that understanding and education is respect.
Everyone has this like idea that it has to be the same for women or as it is for men, and vice versa. And so that's not true. There is no equality in that sense. There's things that women think and are wired to think and wired to do. And there's things that guys think and are wired to think and wired to do based on our instinctual mating drives, which are different because one of us is spreading seed, the other one is being selective and getting pregnant. And so that simple fact has caused us to evolve a little bit differently. So we don't always have similar things. Now, I would say that a guy can be, although you shouldn't be, so don't let this be an endorsement to be disrespectful to your woman. You shouldn't do that.
Absolutely not.
But a guy can be in love and have the Eros for his woman and be disrespectful to her at times. So the reason I say this, because guys are not hypergamous. He is not needing to look up to her to see her as, somebody that he admires and would want to follow and all that stuff. So this can lead to guys into problems, to being disrespectful without being conscious of it, by not being aware they're being disrespectful and just disregarding her like, oh, your opinion doesn't matter, kind of thing. Or, oh, she says something that's important to her and you're like, oh, stupid girl. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. Or in public, just be like, oh, well, she's kind of, she's really absent-minded, like degrade her in front of other people or something. Like guys that do that, it's a huge mistake because it'll make her feel like you don't value her or appreciate her. And and because she is solipsistic, she doesn't understand, because she knows somewhere deep down inside that this Eros love and this high desire and respect have to go together. And so if she is being disrespected, she feels like this guy cannot possibly love her. And that could be absolutely not true, right? He could love her and is being an idiot, or is being just unaware, unattentive, or whatever, because he's in that leadership role as a man, whether society likes that or not, that could put him in a position to be disregarding, disrespectful. You can say accidentally or even on purpose, and then she feels that way. So that's a game faux pas in relationships. Now, where guys can't have love in this thing for a woman is disgust. If a man is disgusted by his woman, he cannot love her as in an Eros sense at the same time. If her behavior makes him cringe, grosses him out, she just feels like, God, she's just a terrible, shitty person. Like, I'm disgusted by her. That is where a guy that doesn't match. Believe it or not, a woman can feel disgusted by her man and still love him.
It's almost like this. Like, here's a good example. Like, growing up, right? I'm the oldest of all my siblings. So I have my younger brother, Anthony. He's about 5 years old, younger than me. And when I graduated high school, I had cologne, I had game, you know what I'm saying? I had all the nice cologne. And he loves me. My brother loves me. He'll do anything for me. But, he disrespected me. He would go in my room and steal my cologne, take it to high school, leave it in his locker so he could smell good for the girls, right? But he stole from me. That's disrespectful. But he still loves me. But you see the same, there's a difference right there. Is like, I know that he loves me, but his actions are disrespectful. And just because he disrespected me doesn't mean he doesn't love me. But the fact that he disrespected me gives me a reason to be like, hey, I can't with you in this. I can't trust you in this area. Sure. Like, and I think when you read Ephesians, when it says, like, husband loves your wives as you love yourself. Okay. First thing is, like, when I look at that, like, okay, well, do I love myself? Do I respect myself? If I love myself and I respect myself, I'm not going to let anybody else disrespect me, no matter who it is. Mm-hmm. Right? So if my wife or a woman is not showing me respect, it is upon me to maintain that standard of respect for myself and what I'm willing to take and what I'm not willing to take. And if there's a level 100%. Of disrespect that comes across, right, I cannot reward bad behavior by allowing that type of disrespect to continue and let them say, okay, I'm sorry, my bad, forgive me, blah, 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 without there being some type of consequence, without there being some type of pull away from or reassessment of the relationship or the value that I think she actually brings at that point.
Let's face it, if you're a man, then you are probably dealing with problems and challenges with women. And these challenges fall into one of three categories. You are either single and trying to get the girls, or you are in a relationship and trying to deal with problems and make the relationship better, or you have had a breakup and you are either trying to get the girl back or trying to move on. Whichever it is, life is way too short to not get what you want out of your relationships, or worse, to be alone or in bad situations with women that have you constantly questioning your self-worth. Now, I've got some good news and some bad news for you. Your success with women literally boils down to one thing. When you have this one thing, all of your troubles disappear and you start having amazing experiences that most men can only dream of. And that's the good news. But the bad news is, if you don't have it, nothing else will work. All of the money, good looks, advice on the internet, and all of the best pickup and game skills out there will fail without you mastering this one thing. And that one thing is frame. Develop the skills in establishing and keeping frame, and everything else follows. That is the big secret. And the good news is, I can teach you all you need to know about it. The answers to ending your pain and suffering and to start living an amazing life with women is just one click away. After this video, click on the link in the description to schedule a free consult to see if you are a good fit. And then you and I can work together on finally getting you to start living the life with women that most men can only dream of. Click the link and let's get started.
I think over time we've heard, men need to respect more women. Men need to respect women. Men need to respect women. Okay, cool. I'm with that. I think over time we have seen men give more respect than they give love to women. And in the process of it, we have not seen more love given to men. Okay. And we actually see more disrespect come from women to men. Yeah. I mean, you look at any sitcom, the dad is the dumb one. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves Raymond. The Simpsons, Al Bundy, Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, these guys were they were the comedic jokes of the show. And
Sure.
we have come down to where society has told men that are dumb.
Right.
And
And
that's a lack of respect.
It is. And that brings us to a good point, which is why framework in your relationship as a man is so important here. Because, especially, and it depends on her level of strong independence, woman narrative that she has going on, right? How she was raised with that or whatever, or her level of, you could say, arrogance in some ways. If it's high, because some women can have really high, and guys too, everybody can have a high level of arrogance or a high level of dominant type behavior, grows up with a strong independent woman narrative kind of a thing. And that's not a conservative or liberal thing, by the way, because there's plenty of people who are conservative, Trumper women who are also taking the strong independent pill, right? And there's plenty of the woke type leftist type women who are doing the same. It's just different ways that they do it. That's a problematic and create a problem for them and for their guy in a relationship, because their default is to demonstrate disrespect and contempt for their man when they don't get their way or when things aren't going well, that they will show, they'll call him a name. Some of these default behaviors, it's like, and these women in the West don't understand that that's not normal behavior for a lot of women in different parts of the world who haven't been westernized, to look at her man and be like, bitch at him because of where he put his shoes. So stuff like that degrading.
Well, you look at undermining.
Right, exactly. And they do it naturally because mom did it, and that makes you a strong woman. Don't take no shit, girl stuff. And what happens is they are getting in the way of their ability to love their partners. And so when they do that naturally, and they may not even be overtly disrespectful, but they're in their minds, they have contempt for this dude because, he's such an idiot, or he does, when she gets that little trigger, her default is to go into a disrespectful mental framework for this guy and to start devaluing him. If she grew up that way, which a lot of women do now, that's her default. Well, here's the problem with that. So here she had great, experiences with this dude, high desire. He's the guy that she has Eros love for, but now her habituated response to things when she's in a different mood is disrespect. What happens? It tears down that Eros and love that she has for that guy in her head. Let me give an example that will resonate even better to guys and any women that are listening to this. Imagine if I sat back and I called my girl a disgusting piece of shit. And I was thinking in my head, she's a disgusting piece of shit. I don't, right now, saying that, those words come out of my mouth, makes me cringe. It doesn't feel right. It feels really bad to say that because I love my girl, right? I have those love feelings. I have Eros for my LTR. And so to say that, it just doesn't, And so, but imagine if I was conditioned to be like this disgusting piece of shit over here. And just that was my conditioning. What would happen? I would tear down those feelings I have for her. I would isolate and focus on negative and devaluing her when she upsets me or makes a mistake or does something wrong, instead of looking at her for the value that I have for her, for someone who has that Eros love for her, and saying, okay, I don't accept the mistakes she made and I'm pissed off that she did that, but I still care about her and let's deal with the problem. Instead of doing that, I'm thinking she's this, that, and the other. And you guys who are listening, you come into the red pill space, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're in that space, but don't go down the road of thinking women ain't shit and taking that narrative, because that will screw you when you're trying to have a good, healthy relationship with someone. She'll do something out of pocket. Instead of handling the behavior like a dominant alpha man who knows how to lead the relationship, you're going to just immediately think, oh, she's a piece of shit, or she's this, she's that. And then you're going to degrade her in your own mind, and she may be a great partner for you and just made a mistake. And I see guys screw themselves all the time with that. What you tell yourself becomes real. But guys are not conditioned, except for there's few abusive men out there. But for the most part, guys are not conditioned to degrade women like that. But women are definitely conditioned to degrade men like that. And that's a problem.
And I think what we're seeing is, okay, there's a good thing about accountability. I think everybody should have accountability. I love accountability. Okay. I hate it and love it at the same time. But I love the fact that I could always change something about it if I'm doing something wrong. I could address the issue. The problem is now that we have this accountability era in this sphere, right? Where it's like, yo, we're going to go trash on women. Okay, cool. Call women out for their bad behavior. Cool. No problem. But are you maintaining the standard for your own behavior? If you're not, then you really don't have any room to throw the stone, And I'm not saying that gives them a pass, but when you don't, when you live in this world, that when you have now in this sphere, we have certain sectors that is always trashing women. Oh, women ain't this, women ain't that, they're garbage, they're just hoes, they're out to get money and this, that, and the other. If that's what you feed yourself, if that's a belief set that you end up adopting or adapting to, okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to view women through that prism. And then even a good woman that comes across you, that could be a good, LTR for you, you are going to view them from that negative standpoint. And then that makes you no different than women viewing men from a negative standpoint.
The difference between respect for a woman and respect, like man respecting a woman, for example, versus a woman respecting a man. Like for men, he has to be attracted to her physically and have that desire for her. So that's thing number one. What's good about guys, though, and I'll just sort of make this as a sidebar, is that we have this condition called marriage goggles. That's not the scientific word for it, but there is a scientific word for explanation for it on a neurological level, where when men have high experiences with a woman and they have their bonding chemicals and they have genuine desire for her, she can decline a bit in SMV due to age, and he'll still see her as super hot chick that he first met. So if he meets that girl when she's 25 or 22 and she's her physical best, which is normally what the case is for that girl, and then they get into a relationship and they last, and she's 40, he still like wants to bang her like she's that 22-year-old that, know what I mean? Even as long as she doesn't let herself completely go and get obese, which then makes her figure now a different dimension and a lot of things that won't register well in most guys' brains. If she can, stay relatively at a decent body weight, she does not have to be a super in shape girl at 50. But if she can stay at a relatively the same dimensions, her wrinkles and a lot of those things, he will overlook that because of that neurochemical bond he has. And so that's a really important thing. But which is also why women would do well to get to be commitment minded earlier. Guys, they don't come into their own until after 30. All right. But women, they should be thinking about hooking up with a dude a decade older than them when they're still have their youth and sexual market value, really, because that guy will be loyal to her and see her as her at her best later on, 20 years later. And that happens all the time. But anyway, that was a sidebar though, but he has to see her as attractive. And the things that he does for her and how well she accepts those things and honors and cherishes those things will also make him be more attracted to her. Because a guy has a strong desire to take care of the baby maker. So when he takes her out, let's say, like plans a really cool date and plans a really cool sexcapade and all this stuff, and she is blown out and overwhelmed by how amazing that is, that makes him more invested, more attracted. If she's just like, oh, thanks. Oh, kind of reminds me when I was on a boat with this guy last month. Then that guy's like, he starts getting that disgusted feeling a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
her appreciation and then her demonstration of loyalty and desire towards him, as demonstrated by her attitude, mostly her pleasantness, the way that she acts towards him, and then some of the little things she does for him and being conscientious towards him. So that's what that makes that guy feel the Eros, is the sex feelings and then all those things. And now for her to respect her, his feelings of respect would be more on her capabilities to do that and to make him feel good, to make him feel like he is top of the world for her in terms of men. And as far as men are concerned, that make him feel like he's that top of the world guy. That will make him have a feeling of respect overall for her. Granted, we might respect her for, how smart she is sometimes, or let's say she's professional, or she's really good at this thing or that thing. We could have like a overall respect for that, but that doesn't make us love her anymore. That's why we say all the time, like, we don't want to bang your PhD lady, I respect that she has a doctorate. Maybe if that's some girl has a doctorate, I respect that, but it doesn't bring my attraction or Eros to her anymore. Whereas women, success does, right? And so it's just important to recognize those distinctions. And again, like men, you just need to be aware that you have to be respectful to your girl, consider her a representation of you. And therefore, if you're disrespecting her, you're disrespecting yourself, because she's your representative. If you think of it like that, that's a good way to think about it, because guys won't naturally think about it because they don't need it for love. They'll think about disgust. They're not going to want to demonstrate or show disgust. This is why women tend to be more critical over men in relationships. Women are the ones who will criticize. Guys tend to not do as much of that, because if it leads them down a path of feeling contempt and disgust for her, then that Eros can't match with that. And so, but she can actually be critical as long as it's not disrespectful, but she can be critical, and still love him. You know what I mean? It doesn't push her to contempt necessarily if she's still respects him. So in other words, my girl might honor me and respect me and see me as that dude, but she's still gonna make fun of me for missing my turn when I'm driving somewhere, or say to me, dude, you always leave food out. Why you got to put this shit away, whatever, and kind of criticize the behavior. She's not criticizing me, and so that's an important thing too, is me not thinking something's disrespectful when it's just a criticism of behavior, a critique, if you will, of behavior. If she comes to me and says, hey, do you think this is right? And I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, no, I don't. What about this? And then I go, shit, she's right. Actually, I'm wrong. Then I'll go, all right, okay, yeah, you got me, and then she's like, okay, yeah, whatever. That upsets me. That pisses me off. Don't do that. And I'm like, yeah, Roger, got it. And that's the end of the discussion. She criticized the behavior. She didn't call me a piece of crap. She didn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. Look at me with contempt, and then multiple days just have this disgusted way of interacting with me. Like, that's disrespect. Whereas criticism, she can do. Guys who criticize their ladies, although there's some that do that, that's not a common thing, I find, with guys, because
I don't find it common, and I it's not something that I hear. Now, I'll hear about like the nagging wife, or like I got a family member that has a wife that really just is just like like the way she talks to him, I'm just like like I'm glad that's not mine,
yeah.
And I just it's like and he doesn't complain about it, I'm just like, okay, you got nothing to say about it, I got nothing to say about it, to each is their own. I find it interesting because remember, you said in the beginning, you said something about we define love differently, and we define love, So I want to give you a very biblical, basic, concept of love.
I love hearing it, because it's a lot of ideas that match up here on the biblical stuff. It's really interesting. Yeah.
So it says 1 Corinthians 13:4. I'm going to read 4-7. It says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongdoings or being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith. It's always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. Okay, so if that's the very basic generalization of love, right? So I ask myself, well, am I patient with my girl all the time? No. Am I kind all the time? No. Do I get jealous? No. I may get insecure at moments. I think we all have our insecurities we have to deal with. Am I rude? Sometimes, so if that's the basic understanding of love, ask ourselves, are we practicing even this very basic understanding of love? Are we being patient with our partners? Are we being kind to our partners? Sometimes guys, we're not. Sometimes we just snap on them. Like, why don't you understand this? Why don't you get it? Like we get real quick with it. And if it says husbands love your wives as you love yourselves, you wouldn't be that way towards yourself. So if you're not that way towards yourself, you shouldn't be that way towards your LTR or your partner.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And in turn, in doing that, if you're that quick with it with her and you're that snippy with her, she's not going to give you respect. Like it goes hand in hand. That's what I'm saying. It's the same coin, but two different sides.
My interpretation or belief or thought on that is the idealized version of love. In other words, this is what you want to aspire to. Because just like you say,
absolutely.
Am I always being patient? No, I'm not. Am I always acting in the way that this is lined out? No, I'm not. If I did act this way, but whether you are that or whether you're atheist or don't believe, that doesn't not important, because this is more or less just ancient wisdom that is being passed down from a book, right? So people, this is what, people observed and thought. It's just interesting to look at. But if you followed those things that are being said, what could happen is you would protect that Eros, protect that love that you have for your partner. And that is the crux of whether a relationship's going to last or not. People are so effing I'm trying to swear because on the YouTube's like, shut him down. He's talking about women. He said be responsible for themselves. And the F-bomb, shut him down. Anyway, but dude, it's like we are so entitled as a culture, men and women.
Oh yeah.
It's like we just think that relationships have to work out, and if the feelings, because of feelings and because of hardship, I don't feel good right now because we just ran into hardship, so I guess I better just end it and move on. And maybe sometimes that is the right answer. A lot of times it is, but a lot of times it isn't. And whether a relationship is gonna work out or not, there's obviously a lot in terms of picking a good partner and all that stuff and proper vetting on both sides. But we're going to run into hardship. It's a question of, do you protect that Eros?